Hey there, welcome back to my channel. You're at the Thrifty Journal Shop. My name's Amber, and today I want to share 3 journals that I'm currently working on. These have been so much fun. I love using fabric, and I love using scraps of fabric and piecing them together. So there's been like a few different inspirations, people that I've watched to create these. This is a really large journal. I've had some requests for larger style journals. This is probably the largest journal that I've ever made, and I will go over it. These are not complete. They're just sort of in different phases. But I wanted to just kind of jump on here and talk for a little bit, and hopefully I don't ramble a lot, stumble upon my words, because I have a tendency to do that. But I don't come from like a sewing background. So the very first time I saw someone sew on paper, I just thought, oh my gosh, I got to get a sewing machine. I had hand sewn a little bit. I used to work in a nursing home and I loved it. And I was in the activities department and we used to sew. At that time, we had all these. I wish I could go back into that craft room or our activity room. We had this storage room full of like wallpaper books. Like I just remember I'd pull out these wallpaper books and do all these crafts, and we had like the fabric scrap books and in the squares, and we would make quilts with the residents and hand sew, and then my boss would take it and she'd use her sewing machine and add the batting and stuff. But I never had a sewing machine. I always wanted to learn to sew. So I came across a YouTube and probably 6 years ago, and I saw Gina over at the Rebookery, and she was sewing on paper. She's Gina Studios now. SJ Studios. I always forget the new name, but we all know Gina if you've been around. She's just always been such an inspiration. But I never knew you could sew on paper. So I actually went out and just bought a sewing machine. And at some point, I'd like to share my sewing machines because they're both from one is my first sewing machine I got at a thrift store. I paid 13 bucks for it. It's old Singer, and that's where I just taught myself to sew. I threaded the needle and learned how to load the bobbin and just started sewing, and I just fell in love with sewing on paper. There's a lot of trial and error. I have broken needles. I mean, it's been like such a fun ride. And my newest sewing machine I got it at an estate sale, and it is like a brand new sewing machine. It's probably a 90s. It was hardly used. I think I paid $30 for it. So if you're looking to get into sewing, you don't have to, and you're not quite sure if you're going to like it, go to a thrift store, go estate sale shopping. The sewing machine I have right now is a Nechi or Nichi. I love it. It's very user-friendly, beginning user-friendly. I'm going to share that sometime. But if you're looking to sew, I just say go for it. It opens up a whole new world. So after all that, these are the 3 latest. And there is I'll share the inspiration behind like some of these. So this is just, this journal is really large. I don't really know. Let's see. This is 12 inches. The height is 12 inches and the width is about 9.5. And this is the front. This is the back. And this is the inside. There are no pockets. I don't know if I'm going to do pockets. If I do, I might just run some lace. So the cover is actually made out of these. I'd made some journals out of window stickies, the window Klingons, and these are just the sheets from those Klingons. It's nice kind of heavyweight sort of cardstock, so I doubled them up, and that's what this cover is made out of. And then the spine is my flexible spine, and I used some canvas paper and kind of reinforced that. So I did stitch down here to make the spine a little bit wider and more pliable. But this is just all just using scraps. I just was looking for Scrappy quilt journals, and I came across a couple people that were just making scrappy quilts. And so this is more like squares already, you know how you can get the squares already cut. And then I had pieced them together. So this was just me using different size fabrics. So how I did this was I just started piecing together all my different scraps and sewing them together. And I'm working on maybe putting together a video to kind of show how I did that. But I ended up with like a huge amount of scraps. And then I went ahead and bought one of these squares. And so I would just lay it down and cut, you know, this is 7-inch square, and then I pieced those together to make this journal. So that is this one. Just a lot of funkiness. I love the fact that it's just raw and different scraps, and it's all uneven, and it just looks really cool. It's nice and soft. And what's nice about this journal is I have a lot of these full-size pages from these gigantic books, and I can actually put them in this journal. I might have to cut them down a bit. So that is this one. So that is just using fabric scraps. So much fun. So I will have that listed sometime in my Etsy shop. So then here's two different styles that I did. So her name's April, and she's got a YouTube channel over at the Pink Odd Bird. I love her channel. I just kind of stumbled across her a couple weeks ago, and she was making a journal, and she was gluing the fabric down first. So she wasn't actually sewing the pieces together. Like, for example, for this journal, I would take 2 pieces of fabric and, you know, put the nice sides together, and then you'd sew down here. So then you'd have this attached. Okay. So for these journals, I didn't sew ahead of time. What I did was, this is made out of chipboard. I just took a bunch of different scraps of fabric and glued them down randomly. And then I went around with my sewing machine and added to it. So these are just a bunch of different scraps of fabric. I just glued them down and then went around with my sewing machine and just added some really messy stitches. And then I did make a separate spine here. This is my flexible spine with a chain stitch. Just a bunch of different scraps of fabric. I added some lace. And then this is the inside, and this is wallpaper. I did reinforce the corners here because this was kind of a beat up box. Once again, just using material that I have, using recycled material. This is just some chipboard. I did for this chipboard, I think I glued 2 or 3 pieces together just to make it extra secure. So how cool is that? Just using scraps and sewing and just, you know, it's like a collage scrap book journal. And here was, this box had like a cutout in it. So I just put part of an envelope and put some sequins in there instead of covering it. I thought that was kind of random. So this was the same concept of this journal. I just took a bunch of different scraps of fabric, glued them down. Here's some lace, went around with my sewing machine, but instead of using cardboard, I used a paper bag, and then just made a thicker spine. This is the back. So just all fabric scraps, just out of my scrap bin. Added this lace, some lace here. Then I wanted to just, I've sort of been in a silk flower phase, so I sewed that on. And then in here, I've got some of the pages, but in here I just lined it with wallpaper and more fabric scraps. So I'd love to do one of these on film because it just was a lot of fun. But yeah, I saw April at the Pink Odd Bird, and she did something similar to this. And I thought, oh yeah, now we're talking. So just a bunch of different ways you could do it. If you have cereal boxes, if you've got, you know, any kind of food packaging, just to recycle paper bags. Paper bags. This is, I think, a paper bag and some of this, just to make it, you know, a little thicker. But paper bags, I love using paper bags for journals. And if you double layer them, you have really good security, and you've got that squishy feel. I'm sort of just in love with a nice squishy soft journal, and just to kind of see how it lays. You know, it's wonky. That's what's nice about it, because like junk journals, to me, they're supposed to look handmade. They're supposed to have like the imperfection. You know, they're not, in my mind, they're not supposed to be like a perfect 10 by 8. If that was the case, I'd be an architect or something, which I am totally not. So I just thought I'd do a quick video and just share some new ideas that I had and some inspiration from people. You know, I personally love, I think I mentioned this before, watching flip throughs of people's personal journals or journals that they're making to sell, just to get ideas and inspiration. I just think it's awesome, this community. You can, you know, take something and put that you've seen and put your own turn or spin on it. I just think that is fun to do. And these fabric journals are just so much fun. So yes. So those are the 3 that I'm working on. I'm not sure when I'll have them available, but I just wanted to share those with you. And we'll have to do one of these on film. And I think, you know, you could probably get away with, if you didn't have a sewing machine, just gluing this on with really heavy duty glue. The thing is with glue and fabric, I'm not a big fan of Fabri-Tac or Fabri-Fix, because I feel like when I use that, a lot of times then I get that crusty feel, and I don't really like that, or it seeps through the fabric. And I've tried to use really thin layers of glue. I have noticed I like tacky glue, the turbo tacky glue, and that seems to work really well. But for this, because I was, and I did use the turbo tacky glue on this one, and it didn't bleed through at all. And I used it really lightly. But then for me personally, I like to go back over with my sewing machine just so it is on there really good. Plus, I love the looks of the messy stitching and just how you can do random stitching and all over. I love that. So though these 2 have the random stitching, this one doesn't. I didn't want to go back through after I put this all together and stitch it again. So this one took a long time to do, just, you know, putting all the fabric together, cutting it down and everything. So when I found this way, this is a different look, but this was easier for me to do. So okay, friends, well, I hope this gave you some inspiration. I will work on putting together some kind of video about how to maybe make your own fabric scrappy journal, maybe a larger style. I know I've had some interest in how I make my larger journals, so I could maybe do one like that using scraps of fabric. All right, friends, get outside and have some fun, and find some time for yourself to be creative and just have some fun. Okay, I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.